Hi, my name is Jeff Blyth, and I've directed 6 Circle Vision movies for Disney theme parks. I was asked to go back and shoot a few updated scenes for Wonders of China to freshen it up. After the survey, I learned Disney was planning to promote the film as new, which it clearly wasn't. I had to do a complete restructuring of the film to move a bunch of the revised material up to the front, including a new scene with a replacement for Li Po, our Chinese narrator.
Ah, China. When one thinks of this magnificent country, one cannot help but envision the Wanli Chanchan, the Great Wall. It once stretched like a mighty dragon across 4,000 miles of China.
During casting, we learned this new actor didn't speak any English. At least he looked like the original Li Po. He was speaking nonsense Chinese words, a kind of gibberish that would seem a little like English words when strung together. But he was so bad at it that I had to direct him to turn away from camera with a broad gesture, just to hide his lips. His voice was replaced later by an actor back in the U.S.
But one can also find landscapes that are ever-changing.
While shooting from a camera car, we had 8 of our own vehicles traveling behind us to block any crazy drivers from trying to pass. That one car up ahead of us somehow got through our blockade.
A city forever reinventing itself.
This montage shows textural details of life in the backstreets of Shanghai. In the old film, similar close-ups revealed a bit too much realism for the authorities. We built a high camera scaffolding above the crowds, then shot both day and night scenes here with a motorized pan. In post-production, we lined up the takes to make the transition look seamless. If you look in the back, you'll see a fake office party that we staged to fill in this rooftop scene. This is very similar to what I did for Shanghai in Wonders of China when we staged a fake restaurant on one of the hotel rooftops. In 1981, this built-up area was just an empty field with billboards warning citizens they could only have one child. We left the camera set up overnight so that it would be loaded and ready for dawn. This was the same location in Hangzhou as before, so I found myself walking in my own footsteps from 20 years earlier. These days, most visitors come up by cable car, not hiking the more than 16,000 steps like we did. The camera was tilted over a cliff, but tied off to a tree behind us. I sat there for 2 days, hand on switch, waiting for the clouds to finally lift. This is a reverse of what we did at the beginning of Wonders of China, where classic paintings transform into real mountains. Here's the original Li Po in his study, which was a set built for us at the Beijing Film Studios. We gathered examples of famous calligraphy, and I snuck in a sample of Mao Zedong's unique handwriting, but I didn't inform the studio. Much of this area is now dramatically changed since the Three Gorges Dam was built after our first film. We shot this scene on the upper deck of a large river cruiser that wasn't going to stop for us. There was no take 2. This was one of our original aerials, filmed over the Yangtze near Yiqiang, many weeks after we did the cruise shots. The helicopter tried to match the same height of the camera when it was on the boat so that it would feel to the audience like we were taking off. Helicopter shots were easily the most difficult challenge in getting permissions from the government because we could see so much from the air.
The course of this great river through mountains and...
This was a grab shot in the original film, meaning it wasn't on our list of pre-approved shots, but I really like these multiple levels of rice terraces. Here's an example of how our hosts eventually came to trust us. This shot was actually filmed in the middle of an army base. Suzhou had grown in population, so coming back to get this newer shot on the Grand Canal meant we needed a lot more security to keep crowds and boats under control during photography. You'll notice the boatload of extras behind us. This is a shot of the original actor, Shi Quan, playing Li Po in the Fisherman's Garden. This has been a famous tourist spot for over 800 years.
So vast is
It was rare, but I scouted this location and then filmed it on the very same day. I got lucky when a goat herder happened to be passing by, so we recruited them as extras. We rented lights from a local TV station, all of which had to be hidden in the shot. We used about 60 extras here, directed not to look at the camera, but realistically we could have used a lot more people and security. Besides the exotic stuff like fried scorpions, one vendor was selling a cooked goat's head, but I moved the shot to the back panels in case it was too disturbing. In Wonders of China, the camels were traveling right to left. For reflections, we just used the second take as they were walking back. We also used these same camels to haul our equipment into this remote location. This was one of the few unused scenes from the 1981 shoot that I remembered we still had in the vaults. You can note the old-fashioned dress of some of the extras in Mao jackets. These Mongolian horsemen wouldn't take direction from me unless I first demonstrated what I wanted by riding on one of their ponies. On the very first take, the two streams of riders bumped into each other. We shot many more close-ups of the riders than this and used them in Wonders of China, but for reflections we only used 2 shots, multiplied 9 times. This national minority dance troupe of Yi people regularly performed stage shows, but we tried to make this setting in Yunnan province seem a little more natural for them. The women you see here are authentic Yi people, but the non-ethnic extras were members of my crew. Filming at 30 degrees below zero, I used my 2 Chinese camera assistants as extras. That big carving in the middle is a replica of the World Cup trophy, surrounded by soccer balls of ice. I scouted these new ice sculptures and then gave the Chinese my video storyboards. I didn't mind not coming back to film these over several freezing nights. I had tried to get Macau in the first film, but never found a good circle vision location. This time we settled for a montage of single panel shots, including one of my favorites, dragon boat racing, in the back panels. We rented this famous junk, which has become an icon of Hong Kong. We also borrowed a yacht for our camera platform, which is seen in the back. I turned down a Disney executive's suggestion that we put sunbathers on the deck. We shot all new single-panel material over several days, including famous markets, the racetrack, and downtown locales, while still keeping the junk as part of our montage. To capture Hong Kong's skyline in circle vision, you can't be up at the top of Victoria Peak or down at sea level. We filmed from the roof of a high-rise in what they call the mid-levels, but it was tough to hoist our equipment up there. We filmed using time-lapse, a camera feature that wasn't available to us back in the 80s. The Nine Dragon Wall had deteriorated quite a bit since we last filmed it in 1981. This time, I chose a camera position on a dolly that didn't get close enough to the wall that we could see the chips and missing tiles. These close-ups are from Wonders of China, when the individual dragons were in much better shape. I'd wanted to get the terracotta soldiers for the first film, but was denied by local authorities. I never found a good circle vision location, so this time I shot single-panel close-ups. Here's another location where nothing really lined up for a good circle vision shot, so I settled for single camera close-ups. We had to charter a boat to get our equipment onto the base of the statue. We used a special tilt plate so the cameras could look up at the Buddha, which meant the back panels were looking down at the river. We bought out an entire opera company for the night. The actors and musicians were bummed that we weren't going to be shooting their entire 2-hour show. I had to convince them that many millions of Americans would always remember this particular performance of the Monkey King as their first experience with Peking opera. With the terrible smog in Beijing these days, it would be very difficult to duplicate this shot. Notice the extras wearing Mao jackets. We used shadowy extras in the foreground to minimize their 80s clothing, while in the far distance those are real tour groups. I included architectural details of the Forbidden City in close-ups, a technique never done before in circle vision. In editing the second film, we altered the timing of the shots to minimize the Mao jackets by keeping people mostly to the shadows. In the original film, it was important to give the viewer a sense of going inside a special place once considered forbidden. This time, we drive out, but we had to use twice as many undercover policemen for traffic control. My direction to the old man on the right was to relate his personal war experiences to the little boy. We were not allowed to even survey this location without special permission and were warned about rooftop snipers. It took months and 32 separate government departments to authorize our filming at this memorial. Everyone you see in this shot has been given specific directions, even the people on the boat, just so we could control the shot and make it look natural. Filming otherwise would have resulted in crowds standing around staring into the camera. Here's our original Li Po, filmed at the Beijing Film Studios with a fake lantern. The surrounding cave shots were all done with a single camera on location and took 3 days to light and shoot using a crew and generator brought in from Hong Kong. This aerial of the Guilin area is actually an unused outtake from the original shoot, so technically Disney could call it new. The memorable theme music, composed by Du Mingxin, is borrowed directly from the original film. We mounted our cameras high enough on a river cruiser so that you couldn't see the boat. We floated along on the current, grabbing shots wherever we found them. This is the original sunset shot aerial from Wonders of China. If you look at the junction of the water, a shape that looks like a T, that's where we filmed the very next shot, a place called Xingping. The fishermen place a ring on the neck of their cormorants so that when the birds dive down for a fish, they can't swallow it. After I heard about that, I didn't want to swallow the local fish either. Almost all these new faces were shot at the National Minorities Park in Beijing, where various ethnic representatives wear authentic costumes. I had them all turned to the camera so that I could synchronize their movements. As before, the new actor couldn't remember his lines very well, so I didn't want the camera to get too close to him. Now in China, the sun usually sets into a layer of thick haze, and just because that's what we were counting on, this day turned out to be exceptionally clear. That meant a distinct shadow of the camera was cast on the wall behind us, which we had to digitally erase later. I think of all the problems that could have gone away in that first film if we'd had computers in those days. Hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for listening.